Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me. It's a brand new day in the studio and a brand new, I don't know, topic, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, thanks for being here. It is raining in Denmark. What a shocker. Let me put this iPad down and I'll be right there. So, welcome, everyone. My name is Chris Rini, and there's a good chance that if you're here, it's because you are a fan of my artwork. And for that, I thank you. Today is Monday, July 22nd. My kids are in a summer gymnastics afternoon, little free thing put on by the commune here, and I've got some time, so I'm working. As some of you might know, I, for a long time, worked at bloodyelbow.com covering mixed martial arts. And with the demise of the site, I kind of was feeling a little lost in the world. And I realized maybe some of you know this feeling if you work digitally, remotely, or anything like that. In the past 12 years, I have met two of my coworkers in real life. That is madness, right? Can you imagine telling someone that 25 years ago? Especially if you're a Gen Xer like me. That is pretty wild. Um, I did, for a portion of those 12 years, have another job working as a bookkeeper for a health food store in Brooklyn. And I had really awesome coworkers. I loved that job, and I love those people. Um, I did bookkeeping or some level of like really shitty accounting for about 17 years. It was my coping mechanism with reality. Have you? What do you do? What do you do for a living? How do you get by? If you're a creative person, right? You got to figure something out. When I went to art school, I did not. One of the. I think it's a good lesson. Not everybody does, but I would meet, you know, recent graduates. You know, they'd come back, they'd hang out. Maybe they were still friends with people who still went to college. I went to college in Manhattan, so it was pretty realistic to, still socialize in the college town because that's also where you probably found work or lived or anything or aspired to be. So they'd come back and you'd say, "Hey, what's up? How you doing? Where you working? How's it going?" And then inevitably, because we were in college and very much, every person is like got their vision that they're working on, their grandness. I'm no different. And they'd say, "Hey, are you doing your own work?" And 100% of the time, the answer would come back, "Nah, I do graphic design, I do illustration, I do whatever it is that I do all day, and then I come home and I'm tired, and I haven't been doing my own work." And you would see this look of defeat on their faces. And I always felt like, damn, I got to do my own thing, for much of my life. I grew up in the Queens, the New York City Queens Catholic school system. A lot of, lot of abuse there. Thankfully, I was primarily subjected to the emotional and psychological kind. I can't say the same for all my friends. And I just said to myself, I can't give up. I can't give up so quickly, so easily. Not easily. Hey, look, we all have bills to pay. We all have reasons for doing what we do. I would never besmirch people for just making a living. Lord knows I have not always succeeded at that. So I decided to just, I didn't know what I was going to do. And then around late 98 or so, 1998, I got a job at a fancy hair salon on 57th Street and 7th Avenue. and I was working the front desk there. To her, when you're kind of an upscale place, a lot of people are like emotionally and psychologically attached to their hairdressers. That's a major part of their lifestyle, and it always blew me away. There was this one guy. He would come in like clockwork every 3 weeks to get the most mundane haircut. I didn't get it at the time. Like, there was absolutely nothing remarkable about this guy's haircut. It was just a very close cropped thing. But I realized later, like, what he needed was like consistency, both of his life schedule and of his appearance. Obviously, these days, people have kind of passed that on to, what is that, the capsule wardrobe, people like Zuckerberg and Steve Jobs, even though that's also branding. So anyways, we had this accountant, who would do our books for us. And she told me how much they paid her, $100 every 3 hours. That was her billing. And I was like, damn, 1998, that was some money. That was serious. And I helped her a couple times because I was the only receptionist they had who could reliably not fuck up the cash register. I could make change accurately and consistently. So I asked her once if I could do something to help her and how she did her job. I was like, I'm not a dummy. Look, whenever you reconcile the books after I've been working, they're fine. So she said, yeah. She showed me a couple things, and I decided that I was going to be a bookkeeper. I was going to be a bookkeeper, and I was going to, that's how it seemed like such a low impact form of employment. And honestly, it was. I did it for a long time, and it was really great because I didn't have to interact with people too much, and I primarily interacted with people relatively higher up in whatever business it is that I worked in. I worked in a lot of different types of businesses. The health food industry. I worked on Wall Street for a little while at a staffing firm. I worked at a black car service. And I worked at very briefly, at an internet imaging company. It was kind of a weird startup. Anyway, this is all to say that I adopted this mindset that I think some people in the punk rock community also have, where it's like, you got to stay angry. You got to keep the fire burning. You can't be too comfortable. Because, once you start earning good money, what if I had gotten a job as I don't even know what I could have done. But let's say you get a job as an animator, graphic designer, some sort of creative field, art director. Man, you start making money, it's really hard to stop making money. It's hard to go back. It's hard to be humble again. So I chose to just be humble forever and live very modestly. And at one point, I even parlayed my meager bookkeeping experience into a job as an accountant. And I made some real good money then. That was nice. I was terrible at the job, and it was a really bad place to work. But I made that money, and the stuff you're seeing me do right now on stream was financed by that work. So let's talk about that. If you're going to make some money, reinvest it in yourself. I know a lot of business, that's a solid piece of business advice. Take your profits and reinvest them in your business. And I was able to do that for myself when I made a lot of money as an accountant. And bear in mind that when I say a lot, it doesn't take much for me to call it a lot of money. I got really into working on wood. I was living in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, and just kind of walking down my block. And in the early to mid 2000s, that's when Brooklyn was absolutely exploding in terms of new construction, because our mayor at the time, Mike Bloomberg, who you may recall getting pantsed hilariously at all of the presidential debates a couple of years ago, he deregulated, I'm sorry, not deregulated, he rezoned the Greenpoint waterfront. And I was living there. I had a music studio there before that happened. And you can get stuff cheap. You can get a cheap, a warehouse space or old factory. My band, we had an 800 square foot loft in a former pencil factory. And that was absolutely amazing. I'll see if I could share with you either some video clips or just some pictures of what we built there. We built ourselves a little club, and we throw parties there and book other bands to play. It was a blast. And I look back as some of the best times of my life. Anyway, I was working as an accountant. Oh, so I'll tie this all together. I was walking down the block in Greenpoint, and one of those buildings was getting renovated, upgraded, turned into a fancy luxury apartment, as opposed to the rat hole I lived in and loved. And there were just like 4 or 6 panels of wood, and something about them just sang out to me. I looked at them, and they were the perfect size, and I believe they were 12 1/4 inches by 12 inches, just a hair off from being perfectly square, and did a series of paintings on them, and that kind of lit a fire in me to kind of come up with this new style and approach to image making. I used to be super fine detail, narrow pen, 0.005 micron, for all those who know, the real ones know. And instead I made these really bold line, brightly colored paintings, and it just revolutionized it didn't revolutionize, it reignited my love of making art, and kind of set me on the path a couple years later towards, quitting being a musician and returning to life as an artist. And back when I was doing those paintings, my crew of best friends all lived in Greenpoint, or Brooklyn somewhere. And a lot of times, we'd be hanging out and smoking and hanging out in my apartment. And I would just sit on the floor, and I'd made this little factory workshop, for painting. And they would just sit down on my bed, or, we'd watch movies or listen to music and smoke and just talk. And at some of them, I look back, and it's just a magical time to just work and just do your thing. When you're a bunch of guys in your mid to late 20s, and you don't have kids or a mortgage, and you're just surviving. That's an amazing life. It's a great time to be alive, and to be creative and just hanging out with your friends. I lived at home for college. I didn't have the dorm experience. And I've always wanted to run a streaming site, or a streaming channel or something like this, where I could kind of feel like I was doing that again. I'm going to move this over so you can see a little better what I'm doing. I want to relive that a little bit, where I can interact with people while I'm working, as much as I just feel like, being an artist is such a solitary existence, which is why I chose music straight out of college. I was like, man, I like having friends. Playing music makes you feel something. It feels so powerful, so energized. Do any of you make music? I understand the joy of like the solitary musician. There's a lot there, crafting something, but the raw the experience of being in a band was really always very thrilling to me and energizing. And It always made me feel so good to make something bigger than myself, something I could never do by myself. And that's both in the very literal um, aspect of like I could not play five instruments at the simultaneously, but also like I could not think of or do the things that other people do that are unique to them. You know, I could play a little drums, I could play a little bass, and I'm in my band. I was both the keyboard and guitar player. And in fact, when nobody was around, sometimes I'd go to the studio and I would get the old loop station out, which was a Boss RC20 or RP20. It was one of the original pedal loopers. We got those in like 2003. And I'd go and I'd make a bass loop, and then I'd make a guitar loop, and maybe even put some keyboards on top, and then I'd go and play the drums, and it would feel so cool to make a whole assortment of things together. But even that, like my bass skills, my bass ideas, they're all pretty much translations of my guitar ideas, my keyboard ideas, and the limitations of what I could do. And to play with a bassist who's dedicated to that, to play with a drummer who's dedicated to that, that's where things get really special, where everybody is functioning at their peak. So I'll tell you a little bit about this artwork we're doing here. I take a ride on the bike towards a place, the Danes call it the forest, It's Bosserup. I can never pronounce anything correctly here, but Bosserup is a beautiful, beautiful, large forest that kind of sits on the southwestern tip of the fjord that feeds into Roskilde, which is 20 miles west of Copenhagen. So I ride my bike out there, take my kids out there, do all sorts of, that's a great way to spend a nice day. Should you ever get a sunny day in Denmark, you want to go outside. So I was taking my daughter to this free horse camp for the day, and gosh, the horse camp was it was 2 days. They're not giving out a summer of horse camp. They're giving you 2 days free, and I'll take her there for 2 days. And the first day was like a full day. It was great. And then the second one was a short day. So I couldn't go home and work. So I was like, all right, let me just bust out my newsprint and my charcoal, my old school tools, and take her out. I think I put some coffee in the travel thermos, and I went out. Basically, the horse camp is right at the edge of Bosserup. So I went there. And I did 3 really nice charcoal drawings, or 3 or 4 charcoal drawings of there's a, like a lookout type view if you've ever driven anywhere in a picturesque locale, in rural America. I'd come across these where there's like a rocky outcropping or a view of a valley, something like that. And you can just pull your car over and just look, because it's beautiful. So I rode my bike out there to one of those, and I did these drawings of this thing that actually overlooks, I guess it's a golf course. And I came up with this nighttime scene. I'm combining a variety of things that I know and learn about Denmark into a slightly not surreal, but a manufactured view. So I made these drawings, I turned them into digital pieces, and then those digital pieces I took them to this place called Orange Makers, where they have a laser. And with that laser I engraved all of this line work. You can kind of see it really well over here. And with that I can do what I call wood stained glass, where I use this assortment of wood stains that I got in New York City. As you can see here, this is my whole palette. I did it 3 times because I was testing out different glosses and polyurethanes and things like that. So I made these, and this is my test, my palette tester, and then I made these drawings that or engravings, and I did them in 3 different color palettes. And I decided to do this nighttime one. Here it is. As you can see, this is a lot duller, a lot paler, and this is extremely rich. The saturation is really there. So I'm putting a layer of indigo on top of it to kind of dull it a little bit. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe it'll look amazing. I'm most happy with the clouds. They're nice. I didn't have to engrave the highlights. I just painted them in. So it's nice to just kind of make, let's see, what am I trying to say? To make painterly strokes. Now I'm gonna mix, let's see, I'm gonna mix indigo with this deep violet. I'm gonna mix my indigo and deep violet. Come up with a color for these bushes and trees. La la la, there we go. It's really nice being here and kind of plugging along. Let's see, deep violet. So all of these wood stains and colors and this whole thing is an art process I invented. I'm very proud of that. I'm hoping to get a corporation in Denmark to sponsor me to teach this to Danes, both old and young. I've done some teaching here, and it's been quite rewarding. I've never had aspirations to teach before, but having come to Denmark and seeing their, you know, I'm saying this facetiously, their socialist paradise, and the way they handle things, it's like, wow, this is really interesting. Makes me want to give back to my community and participate in a new way. So I'm doing that. I'm getting with it, getting with the program. On top of that, I don't know. They have this interesting program where corporations can finance artwork and then use it as a tax write-off. I've yet to learn how to access that money, but I really want to. The company that I am targeting first is called Vestas. They make what they call turbines, but what we would call windmills. I know windmills are like this antiquated thing, but I think it's so important to kind of latch onto that everything old is new again kind of perspective. You know, we don't have to, like, you know, when like a Silicon Valley tech bro like reinvents the bus. You know, if you've seen, that's happened like multiple times. Like, don't do that. Just it's a fucking windmill. It's just a new kind. You just made it better. It's just really nice. It's a really nice windmill. Let's call it like it is. Does it harness wind and give you power and energy? Then that's what it is. It's a fucking windmill. So they call them turbines. That's fine. So my idea is to make a couple of these landscapes and then actually put some of the Vestas turbines in them and kind of pitch the company. But I'm going to have to pair that with a gallery show. So I'm also making these works with the intention of showing them at a gallery. I really, really hope that I don't have to do some sort of pop-up gallery type thing. I have one here in Roskilde, singled out or whatever. So we'll see if I can make that happen. You know, people only want to work with people who are already successful. As if you are a young person, you might be aware of the kind of conundrum of looking for a job straight out of college, and you need 3 to 5 years experience, but they pay an entry-level salary, and you're like, how am I going to get experience unless I get a job? But the entry-level job requires experience, which makes no sense. So in a way, art is very much the same in that, do you have a great idea? Okay, well, are you already successful? Because then your idea is good. And if you're not already successful, then your idea is silly and bad, or just another pipe dream. So I feel you. I feel you, young people. I'm trying to reconcile my own existence as a no longer young person. All right, I think I'm going to wrap up the stream here, but I'm going to continue working. So thank you for joining me. It was great to be here. My name is Chris Rini. I would suggest that you like, subscribe, enable notifications. We are going to make some great work together. Thanks for your time. See you later. Bye.